నమస్కారం dsన్యూస్ తెలుగు ఛానల్కి స్వాగతం. మన దేశంలో నిరుద్యోగ సమస్య రోజు రోజుకి ఏ స్థాయిలో పెరిగిపోతుంది. అసలు నిరుద్యోగ సమస్యకి పరిష్కారాలు ఏంటి, అసలు నిరుద్యోగ సమస్య పెరగడానికి గల కారణాలు ఏంటి, దీనిపై ప్రభుత్వాలు ఏ విధంగా నడుచుకుంటున్నాయి అనే దానిపై మాజీ ఐఏఎస్ అధికారి లోక్సత్తా పార్టీ వ్యవస్థాపకులు డాక్టర్ జయప్రకాష్ నారాయణ గారి
unemployment, we really do not know what is the picture. We only have a lot of anecdotal evidence and some empirical evidence. For instance, when the railways wanted to recruit some tens of thousands of low-level workers, gangmen and others who actually either maintain or build the tracks, including those with university graduates, postgraduate degrees, some even PhDs, they all applied for recruitment as gangmen in railways. 2 crore people. That probably is the largest number of applications for a single job advertisement in the history of mankind. Now that does not speak of a low unemployment. It speaks of tremendous unemployment and frustration. Similarly, in certain states, when some posts were advertised, again the number of applications are 1 to 300, 1 to 500, 1 to 1000. Huge number of applications are coming forward. Again, very highly qualified people, at least on paper, they are applying for very low level jobs. India is perhaps the only country, at the very least one of the very few countries in the world, where the more you are educated, the more you are unemployable. The uneducated and people with very little education, just a few years of schooling, in general, almost all of them are employed in the country. If young people have finished schooling, they are less employable than the uneducated in India. If they finished 2 years after school, the pre-university course, intermediate or +2, then they are even less employable. If they got a university degree or diploma, they are even more unemployable. And if they got a postgraduate degree, they are much less employable. If they are PhDs, they are least employable. This is an amazing development. World over, education makes people more employable. It's more likely that an educated person gets an employment quickly. It's also more likely that the wage for an educated employee is higher than the uneducated employee, because educated employee has skills and therefore is much more productive. But in India, obviously education system has collapsed, and therefore the job market is not accepting the so-called educational qualifications that are being churned out in the country. The government skill development mission is a very vital initiative. It's been going on for about 10 years now, but the results are mixed. In some institutions, both private and government, some serious efforts are made to improve the skills, but such cases are only a small percentage. Lakhs of other youngsters are on paper trained, but in reality there is no evidence that the training is very useful in enhancing their productivity and employment prospects. Third, there has been a serious failing in certain sectors. For instance, take healthcare. Country, 64 million people are becoming poor. They were not poor at the beginning of the year, but during the year, more than 60 million, more than 6 crore people are becoming poor on account of ill health, either cost of the healthcare or because they could not work on account of ill health. Either way, poverty is perpetuated. The descent into poverty, those who are not poor earlier becoming poor, is humongous because of healthcare problems. And yet, in healthcare sector, India altogether, both public sector and private sector, employs only about 3.2 million people, 32 lakh people. If you take the developed world, and if you take a comparison with the overall population and those employed in healthcare, typically 2.5 to 3% of the population is engaged in healthcare in those countries. In India, it is 1/10 of that number. If only we improve the healthcare system, the delivery of healthcare, primary, secondary and tertiary, with proper linkages and a very proper design, and allocate adequate resources, we can probably employ about 1.5 or 2 crore people only in healthcare sector. And these are not merely jobs giving employment to the unemployed, but these are going to be incredibly important in reducing distress and reducing the descent into poverty, apart from reducing mortality and morbidity. It's a win-win solution. But because of government's bad policies and spectacular failure, we are not only not able to employ people, we are also not able to make most of the poor people productive. So there are many sectors like that where we can create mass employment. Even for these people without too many skills, as long as they have some basic skills and some basic education. You take tourism. There are areas even today, whether wildlife, nature preservation, or places of historical or architecture or archaeological value. For instance, there is a place called Jwalapur in Andhra Pradesh in Kurnool district, where 73,000 years ago, when Mount Toba erupted, a small tribe seems to have survived. In fact, the only place in Asia where a tribe survived Mount Toba's eruption was in Jwalapur in Andhra Pradesh. Anywhere in the world, they could have made that into a great shrine, an archaeological wonder, and a place of tremendous tourist importance. Now, there are so many such places of significance which can attract tourists if only we create the infrastructure, you establish linkages, and make that a pleasant experience to people. It will be a good educational experience, cultural experience, and a lot of jobs can be created. There are many areas where jobs can be created, but there is no conscious effort on the part of the government to build the right kind of infrastructure, to make the right kind of investments in place of healthcare, and to do the right kind of skills, or to improve the quality of life. That is where the answer lies. Not somehow disputing the statistics available, or disputing the mounting evidence that we see of the pain and the suffering of the young people who are not able to get employment, and their parents who are worried about their children's future. I think we have to set our act right. If in many indicators, when you see out of the 49 large disease prevalence rates and so on and so forth, all the standard indicators show that India is languishing at the bottom 5 of the 49 large economies in the world. The countries in our company are Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Nigeria. We can do better. We need to do better. And the way of doing better is not doctoring statistics and creating somehow an impression or heavily advertising and marketing that data, saying that we are doing extremely well. We actually have to do well. We have to overcome the deficiencies. India has that ability. We have the resources, we have the technology, but we require the will, and we require the governing structures and designs to make sure that the outcomes actually follow. Not slogans, and not marketing, and not